What's up, tribe? How you guys doing? Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I hope you like this video. This is going to be your review for The Wire Retro Review Season 1 Episode 3. So we start this episode off with we're in the low rises, and they're waiting on the re-up. They're waiting on the package, right? And one of the things comes through, and of course he looking for it. He looking for his morning fix. And D'Angelo tells him, look, man, you got to come back later. We don't have nothing right now. And not Weebay. Is it Weebay? Maybe it is Weebay. Anyway, the other dude that's down there with him, I can't think his name right now. He, the one that's always real nasty, and he was like, man, get the hell out of here. It's, it's 9 o'clock in the morning. You already trying to get high. And D'Angelo was like, you don't have to be Bodie. That's who it was, Bodie. He was like, you don't have to be that rude. Like, you don't have to treat them like that. And he was like, what are you talking about? They're dope fiends. Like, what is wrong with you? And he was like, yeah, and you're a drug dealer. He was like, and like, I'm a drug dealer, but why does it matter? Like, why are you making a big deal about it? So anyway, but D'Angelo basically was telling them, look, like, okay, they're coming through here. We know what they are, but we don't have to treat them the way that we treat them. Like, it is what it is. So then here come Bubs with his bag of hats, and we got Chemo on the roof, and again, we doing the hat game, putting the red hat, the black hat, so that they can go back later and break down the information. Now, while all of this is going on, we got Lieutenant Daniels. He's down in Burrell's office, Chief Burrell's office. He's getting, or the deputy's office, I should say, and they going through what happened at the towers with the whole, they called it a riot, child. It was 1 police car and 3 police officers got, taken, but it was a riot. And, Burrell is asking him, he was like, look, basically it's going to go to the grand, that the DA decided to move forward with the case, but they're going to take it to the grand jury, knowing the grand jury is not going to indict, basically to make it look good, make it look like they're doing something, but they know the grand jury is not going to indict these police officers. They were like, the 3 eyewitnesses have rap sheets, as long as my arm. Nobody's going to really indict them on when it's their word against a police officer's word, even though the police officers are lying. So then, Daniels was like, all right, well, can I at least put Presbeluski on administrative leave? He was like, I mean, I had stuff that, he could do in the office, but I just don't think he need to be on the street while this is going on. Like, I just don't think that's a good look. And they go around the room, they conversate about it, and then they decide that's cool. Now the major, Presbeluski, he know people in high places. He's married to the right person, and so they really wasn't trying to even do that. The major wasn't even trying to do that, and he was like, oh, he's a good kid. Oh, he just needs a little help. Blah blah blah. So when the lawyers and everybody leave out the room, Burrell looks at Daniels and he was like, now listen, let me ask you a question. Did you really send your people down there at 2 o'clock in the morning to do field interviews, or did you not know that that's what was going on? Daniels was like, that's a no-win question. He was like, if I say yes, then I fucked up. If I say no, then I'm throwing my people under the bus. He was like, so do you still want me to answer that question? So then Burrell was like, all right, so yeah, I fucked up. So then the major is still sitting there, the one that, wants Presbeluski to stay on the street. He was like, that's right, taking one for the team. He was like, I ain't trying to take one for the team, but y'all done put me between, a rock and a hard place. I can't really say what really went down, So the major ends up leaving, and we see Daniels and Burrell having a conversation. And, Daniels is like, look, he's a necessary evil. Like, I got to deal with him, politically. Now, what was really funny was Burrell was like, I owe you one. You took one for the team. I owe you one. The major was like, yeah, I owe you one. And they said, and for your trouble, we're going to send you, we're going to send you 2 more police cars. We're going to send you this. We're going to send you that. They made him all these promises of what they was going to send him. And I even think they said they were going to send him some manpower while these people were out on leave, while those 3 police officers were out on leave. The manpower he sent, come to find out, those were 3 fuck-ups too, because, they keep sending him the bottom of the barrel. Anyway, so we get back down to, we're back down in the boiler room, and we see them going through we see them going through the pictures. Bubs is with them and they're going through the pictures or whatever. And McNulty is like, we really need a picture of, like, we got all these pictures of everybody and we ain't got a picture of Barksdale. Like, we don't know who this man looks like. He's a ghost. So they going back and forth. So then, you know, McNulty, he turns to the two cops that are like drunks that, you know, need to retire. And he was like, look, why don't y'all go down to housing authority and try to find a picture of him? Everybody, we know that he grew up in the projects, and everybody, you know, the housing authority started taking ID pictures, so he had his ID picture taken at some time. So they was, you know, of course they were trying to tell him, why don't you do it? And he was like, fine, you do my job, I'll do your job. So they, you know, of course they looking at each other like, nah, we ain't trying to do all that shit that he be doing. So they end up going down there. Now back down to the low risers, we see D'Angelo. He's schooling the boys. Now, Bodie and them are sitting around. They're playing checkers with a chessboard, and D'Angelo is like, "What are y'all doing?" He was like, "Y'all can't. That's not how you play checkers." And they were like, "We're not." No, he's like, "That's not how you play chess." They were like, "We're not playing chess." He was like, "But why aren't you playing chess?" So he realizes they don't know how to play chess. So then he proceeds to teach them. And what he does is he uses what they're doing as drug dealers to break down the chessboard, you know, from Avon all the way down to basically them. And I think not only are they learning that mindset of a check, you know, that strategy of checkers, not only that, but they're also realizing that they're pawns. They're low men on the totem pole. But you see that D'Angelo is building a rapport with them or what have you, because, you know, he was not happy about being sent down into the dungeon. Now, McNulty and Kima end up having a conversation. We got Bubs there, and we find out that McNulty, well, we knew McNulty was going through a divorce. He's got 2 kids. Come to find out because he was cheating on his wife. And so he starts asking Kima questions about, well, you know, you ever been married and this, that, and the other. And Bubs was just like, he was like, listen, you barking up that tree, you barking up the wrong tree. Like, you know, she don't swing your way. So Kima was like, look, you know, she was like, I'm gay. McNulty was like, oh, no, she said, I date women. He said, oh, well, we got that in common. We both date women. And basically let her know, like, I ain't really tripping off of that. Like, that's cool. You date women. It's cool. It's cool. It's cool. So then she goes on to explain about, you know, just the different things she's had to deal with being a woman. And that she said, honestly, being gay sort of kind of helped her from not getting hit on so much by all the different, you know, like all the different cops and stuff like that. They kind of leave her alone. You know what I mean? So meanwhile, back down to the boiler room, freaking Frack, they done came back from down to the housing authority looking for the picture of Avon Barksdale. First of all, they drunk. I mean, how bold do you have to be to just show up at your job drunk? Like, anyway, they're drunk, and they give McNulty a picture of this old white guy talking about something. Here go Avon Barksdale, and McNulty was like, it's no, like, really, like, that's... They said, look, that's the name, that's the picture, everything match. It, like, if you want something different, you got to give us something different. And they end up rolling out. So him and Kima start going over what information they do have about Avon Barksdale. And one of the things that they find, I mean, your normal drug dealer stuff, nothing in his name, no criminal record. He had his juvenile record expunged. He doesn't stay in any one apartment. Nobody really knows, you know, nothing. He's a ghost. And so... But the one thing they did mention was that he used to be a Golden Gloves boxer. And as soon as they said that, Freeman, who's in the back listening to Jazz working on his dollhouses like he always is, he perks up and he was like, Golden Gloves, you said? They were like, yeah. He picks up his coat. He walks out. He don't say nothing to nobody. He don't tell nobody where he going or nothing. Next thing you know, we see him show up at this old hole-in-the-wall gym. Like, you wouldn't even know it's a gym if you ain't know that's what it was. And he walks up to one of the coaches, older guy. You could probably tell he probably know every Golden Gloves boxer in the city of Baltimore for the last 50 years. So he ended up getting some information from him. He comes back in. He comes back into the boiler room. He got one of those old advertisement posters of Barksdale from one of his fights, and he's got a picture of Barksdale. Now, granted, it's a younger picture, but it's a picture. It's better than what they had from the damn housing authority. Now, McNulty and Kima were like, thanks. They were like, where you get this from, Freeman? Freeman don't say shit. He go back to his desk, sit back down, turn his music on, and get back to working on his dollhouses. See, they gonna learn Freeman moves with silence. Well, At least right now he does. So McNulty and Kima go down to the FBI, meet up with his boy. You know, remember he got his little friend down to the FBI, and he hooks them up with some surveillance film. They see, you know, he done already told them that this is post 9/11, and basically at this point the FBI is only concerned about 9/11 type activity. So they really don't care about the drug game right now. That's not their concern. And so he hooks McNulty up with some surveillance information. I mean surveillance, you know, wire, you know what I'm saying, mics and stuff like that. So they're gonna put one of the detectives undercover down to the projects. And they get basically they get him ready to go down there to go do some surveillance, but Bubs has to give him a crash course in Dope Fiend 101, and it's like the little nuances. Like he had the general look, you know, he looked bummy. He said he hadn't shaved, he hadn't washed, he was wearing, you know, torn up clothes and stuff like that. And so it was little things that Bubs was able to help him with, like the fact he was still wearing his wedding ring. He was like, "What's that?" He was like, "That's my wedding ring." He was like, "Mm-mm." He said, "If you was really a dope fiend, you'd have been pawned that by now." And so it was little things. So they got him together. He's supposed to have glass under his sneakers and stuff like that. Got him together. Got him ready to go down to the projects. Now, while they were at the FBI, I got ahead of myself a little bit. While they were down to the FBI, and the FBI agent asked them who their lieutenant was, and they said Lieutenant Daniels. He sort of gave McNulty this look. He didn't say nothing, but that look clearly said a lot. So it was kind of like, what you saying that you're not saying that you need to say? Later on in the episode, McNulty and his friend, they do hook up. And he tells him that Daniels is dirty. He said, listen, he said a couple of years ago, the Baltimore City Police Department came to us to investigate him. We found that he's got a whole lot of disposable income that's unaccounted for. And McNulty was like, I mean, maybe he got a trust fund. Like, maybe he gambles. Like, y'all just assume that he's dirty because he has more money than he should have. And he was like, look, all I know is we weren't able to, you know, dig any deeper. We took that information to the major. The major said he was going to handle it. Come to find out it was Burrell. Burrell was like, he was going to handle it, and that's all we heard. He said that was about 2 or 3 years ago, but I see that he's still, you know, running cases in narcotics. So it's a little bit of some shady with Daniels, and we'll dig deep into that later, of course. Now, while all of this is going on, they're being watched. The police are being watched. The people in the low rises are being watched by the most iconic character that's come out of The Wire. Now, a whole lot of characters have come out of The Wire, but this particular person is probably the most iconic character that has come out of The Wire. Omar is the neighborhood thief, honey. He is the Robin Hood. Well, he ain't even Robin. I guess you call him the Robin Hood. But Omar has been surveilling. He's paying attention to the system, how, you know, who does the re-up, when the re-up comes, what building the re-up is in. He's making sure that he's keeping up, so he'll know when the maximum time for him to hit the house. I mean, to hit the stash house. But what he also peeps while he's watching them, he realizes that the police is watching them as well. So he got his eye on the police, and he has his eye on D'Angelo and the crew. Baby. So Omar, we see, like I said, we see him a couple of times throughout the episode. Obviously, if you've never seen The Wire before, you wouldn't know who he is. But of course, we know who he is because we've seen The Wire before. Now, Daniels. Oh, let me rewind. I'm getting ahead of myself. See, so much goes on, y'all. So D'Angelo ends up having to take the drop down to the strip club. That's where they do their business, out of the back room at the strip club. So he takes the money down to the strip club. He's dropping it off to Stringer Bell. He gets down there. He dropping them $22,000. Stringer Bell was like, from the low risers? He said, we ain't never had that much money coming out the low risers. He said, you really getting some things in order down there, D. I'm impressed. And so D'Angelo was like, well, where does all the money go? D'Angelo, do you really think he was getting ready to answer that question about where the money was going? Like, did you really think Stringer Bell was getting ready to explain to you his operation? Boy, bye. So, of course, Stringer Bell gives him that look like, is that a serious question? Like, you really think I'm about to tell you where the money goes. um, but he basically you could tell that D'Angelo, this plan that D'Angelo has set up down to the low rises is working, that they really putting some stuff in order. Now when he's leaving, Stringer Bell gives him a bonus. He said, look, here's a bonus for you. You're doing so great. He was like, make sure you spend that on something you wouldn't normally buy. So D'Angelo goes into the bar, and there's a chick there. Now, I ain't really mentioned her in the first episode, but it was a chick on the first episode who worked at the club, and she, was trying to get him to buy her a drink and all that other stuff. And so this time she sees him, and she doesn't remember him. She says, you want to dance? And he was like, last time it was a drink, now it's a dance. And she looked at him. She had to put her glasses on, honey. She looked at him. She was like, well, did you she me a drink? He said, nah. She said, well, then why would I remember you? Like, you didn't buy me no drink. You're not important. So, he ends up putting money on the table. So now he's flashing, right? He's showing off. He was like, yeah. He said, this is my uncle's club. She was like, Orlando, because the name of the club is Orlando's, topless bar, whatever. He said, no. See, Orlando is like the front man. My uncle, he the money man. She was like, oh, so you work for your uncle? He was talking about I'm his right-hand man. I said, see, D'Angelo, now you playing. So, of course, as soon as he said that, now she real, she all rubbing on his leg and holding his hand. And, so I said, okay, D'Angelo, I guess you're going to take when Stringer Bell told you to take your bonus and spend it on something you ain't never bought before, I don't think he meant a woman. But whatever. So, anyway, that's what D'Angelo ended up doing, honey. He ended up buying. It's implied. It is implied. We don't actually see what went down, but it's implied. So we back down in the low rises, honey, and Bubs and the detective are, they are working. They working the low rises. They buying, and they trying to figure out the operation. They're seeing, how the operations are being run, who's doing what, who's putting their hands on the money, who's putting their hand on the product. And what they realize is, after all day long of walking around buying drugs, they have learned nothing. They have not learned where the stash house is. They have not learned who's in charge. They don't, they said the people who put their hand on the money and the product, they're not important. They're not any of the lieutenants. So they really have nothing. And so they're frustrated, and they decided to sort of call it a day. And like I said, that's when Omar sort of peeped what was going on with the police. So later on that night, they're down in the boiler room, honey. And it's McNulty, it's Kima, and they're just kind of figuring it out. And McDaniels comes through, and McDaniels tells them, he said, look, don't worry about what y'all got going on. I just came from upstairs, and they're telling me they want us to go ahead and raid the low risers. And they were like, raid them for what? We don't know anything. We don't have anything. And I know y'all don't think that Boxdale is just hanging out down to the low risers, but again, they never had any intention of making this serious. They were just trying to pacify the judge, get the judge off their back so that they could make it look good. Daniels was telling, of course McNulty is pissed. And Daniels is telling McNulty, listen, I don't like it either. But what the hell you want me to do about it? Like, that's what they telling me to do. We got to follow suit. It is what it is. Make it happen. He was like, start putting the paperwork in for the warrants so we can knock down these doors. Kima was like, we don't even know what doors to knock down. Like, we don't even know where any of the drugs are. McNulty was like, they change stash houses every other day. He was like, listen, do what you got to do. Make it look however you got to make it look. So then we get a little bit more information about Mr. McNulty. Now, remember last week when earlier this week when I told y'all about the DA? Well, come to find out, the person that McNulty was having an affair with was her. He went to go visit her because he had to find out. He said, how do you clone a pager? She was like, what? He got to her house at like 9 o'clock at night. And of course, when he showed up, she thought he was there to get a little nook. And she was giving him a hard time. But of course, she gave in. She let him in the house, honey. And she was like, you showed up at my house at 9 o'clock at night to ask me about warrants? Like, he was like, yeah. He said, how would I be able to convince a judge to get a pager clone? He said, the people down at the low rise, he said everybody else is using cell phones. They're still using pages. There's a reason. But in order for us to get any information, we need to be able to see what's going on what's going back and forth on these pages. And so she gives him the information that he needs, and he getting ready to leave. And she was like, oh, Oh, so that's what we doing? That's what's going down now? He was like, what's wrong? She said, so when you're married, date night consisted of us at a room down to the Best Western. Now that you're single, date night for us is you show up at my house and ask me about legalities and legal cases. Like, that's what we doing? And he was like, yeah. I mean, yeah. So she was like, all right, fine, get out, bye. Next thing you know, we see them in bed having sex. It seems to be their pattern, I guess. But I find that to be very interesting. But that happens a lot. When men have affairs with women and then the relationship ends, a lot of times the relationship with the other woman ends too, even though we have seen the other. Anyway, child, forget it. I'm on it. See, I done went left. Let me get back here. It's been 20 minutes. So, they end up getting the warrants. They getting ready to do their, they getting ready to go on their little raid. And Daniels comes in there. He got his vest on. McNulty said that he don't have on his vest. McDaniels was like, what's your problem? McNulty was like, McDaniels was like, let me talk to you for a minute. So they go in the back and they get to arguing. And McNulty was like, look, I ain't going. That's bullshit. That's not real police work. And I'm not going on that damn raid. Oh, wait a minute. Let me rewind. See, I done missed an important part. We're back to the low rises. It's at night. D'Angelo decides he wants to go down to the curry out to get him something to eat. I had to put my DC on that curry out to go get him something to eat. He runs down there to get something to eat. While he's gone, the people show up to do the re-up. While they're doing the re-up, guess who shows up with his sawed-off shotgun, hand on the pump, pumping on the 40, sipping on... Okay. Anyway, wrong song. Messed up the lyrics, but y'all get the point. Omar comes busting through there to rob them. Now, these young blokes do not know who Omar is and or his reputation for destruction. He's got the sawed-off shotgun. They must think that he's scared to use it. He asked them where the product is, and they like, ain't nothing here. He was like, okay, see, I'm not going to play this game with y'all. Where is the product? Dude was like, it ain't nothing here. Omar proceeds to shoot him in his kneecap. So, of course, that serves as a warning to everybody else up in there. And little boy was like, it's in the kitchen, under the sink, behind the pipe, underneath a rag. The rag is blue. Look behind the red rag. Like, he was like, here. There it is right there. They done beat up Weebay. They done beat up the Lookout. They done beat up everybody else. Now, Omar got greedy. He knew it was more in there than what they found. So, Omar was like, where the other pack? His partner in crime with him, which we'll talk about who he is later, but his partner in crime was like, Omar, come on. Omar gave him the look of death. Like, I know you did not just say my goddamn name. So, of course, at that point, then Omar did leave, and he left them there. Just as D'Angelo is walking back with the food, honey, he sees the white van taking off. So, now we're at the getting ready to go on the raid. Okay. So, McNulty tells Daniels, listen, you can write me up. You can do whatever you want to do. I'm not going on that raid. Oh, sorry, y'all. That's my phone. He said, you can write me up. You can do whatever you want to do. I'm not going on that raid. And Lieutenant, Daniels was like, well, why the hell did you come in? Why didn't you just call out? He was like, because I'm not going to pretend. Like, I'm making a statement. I want everybody to know why I ain't here. Like, I want them to know what the problem is. So then Daniels tries to write him up on a medical saying, you were too sick to go. He was like, I'm not doing it. So Daniels was like, listen, I just have to deal with your insubordinate ass later. I got work to do. So they end up going on the raid. McNulty does not go. And they get down to the low risers. Now, while they're rolling up on the low risers, we got Weebay, it really is Weebay this time, fussing at D'Angelo, basically telling him, listen, when you got the re-up coming, you got to make sure that why is everybody calling me? Like, when the re-up is coming, you got to make sure that you're good. Like, you can't play this game with the re-up. And so I'm not understanding why you were out making a hot wing run while the re-up was coming through your spot. And so he said, now you got us here looking stupid. We don't even know who the name is. We don't know what he looked like. We don't know nothing. So then that's when Bodie was like, oh, I mean, his name was Omar. His name was Omar. Like, what you mean we don't know who he is? His name was Omar. Weebay was like, Omar. So clearly, he knows who Omar is, right? He was like, Omar. Now, while they're doing this, now here come the police cars rolling up on them, honey. They busting down doors. They arresting people. They rounding people up. Now, Bodie decided that he was going to be real bold, and he ended up sucker punching one of the police cops, one of the older drunks, And honey, when I tell you they whooped his ass. Now see, that wouldn't go down in 2020, because if that was happening in 2020, it'd be 20 cameras on them and it would be viral before they got him back to the precinct to book him. But Bodie did punch him for no reason. I mean, the man was just doing his job, but Bodie saw that he probably thought, okay, you white, you can't do nothing to me. And so they round them all up. The police station, I mean the news reporters, they want some action. They were like, listen, show us what you got. We'll put it all over the news. Kima was like, show them what we got. We ain't got shit. We ain't got shit. And let's talk about how funny it was that Kima saw old boy get sucker punched. Honey, Kima ran from across the yard to go whoop his ass. At first I thought Kima was running over there to stop them, because they had already started whooping his ass. No, Kima came over there to join in. But anyway, they didn't get nothing, just as McNulty told them. First of all, they had already got robbed the night before. So even if they knew which stash house to go to, it still wouldn't have been shit in the stash house. But they didn't even know which stash house to go to. Now they done really tipped their hand, and they walking away with nothing, which is, of course, what McNulty was basically telling them to begin with. The only thing they did walk away with was Freeman did get a phone number from inside of where the old stash house was. It was a phone number written on the wall that he wrote it down. I'm sure that's going to come back into play later, because, you know, whenever Freeman does something, you got to pay attention. With that being said, that's it. That's all. I know we long, but listen, HBO, The Wire gives us 60 good minutes of solid action. No commercial interruption, okay? A lot of moving pieces. Let me know what y'all think. Drop it in those comments. Peace.